much for joining us on a budget special focus on housing and infrastructure. Two things which affect the quality of lives we live. Were we expecting the finance minister to wave the magic wand and make all the ills of the sector go away? Well, why not? Every year, the industry builds its expectations and expects so much that it almost sets itself up for failure, even before the finance minister starts his speech. Let's not go into what the initial reactions have been, because we do want to get more. Today, we'll get to the bottom of what the Union Budget 2013-14 has been for the corporate sector as a whole and for housing and infrastructure in particular. My panel on this discussion: Anuj Puri, Chairman and Country Head, Jones Lang LaSalle, India. Joining us from the Mumbai studio, Dharmesh Jain. He's the Chairman of Nirmal Lifestyle, Nirmal Group, Mumbai studio. Shrikant Paranjpai, Chairman, Paranjpai Schemes. We also have with us S. Sridhar, former Chairman and Managing Director of National Housing Bank and now advisor to RICS. Shailesh Pathak, President, Shrey Infrastructure Finance Co. Limited, of course, in the Delhi studio. He's in the center, so let's point the camera at the right person. Gitambar Anand, Head of ATS. And of course, Sameer Jasuja, CEO and founder of Prop Equity. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. We're going to go into the housing and infrastructure details a little later, but I think everyone who's just tuned in, what's initial reaction on what is it that you liked or did not like about the budget? So Anuj, let's start with you. Were you just relieved that it didn't do any damage?
Yeah.
All right. So let me start with the Delhi panel. Gitambar, relieved it didn't do any damage or not so?
Well, there was no damage for sure.
Okay.
But your opening statement, housing and infrastructure, said it all. We were looking for infrastructure status for housing.
Right.
And that didn't come through. So that was a big disappointment. Well, we do have the few goodies that the industry has got. To start with, I think that's all I'll say.
Okay. All right. So disappointment. Shailesh, I think you're not disappointed at all. Or are you?
No, actually, I'm quite happy, because just to share an anecdote of a friend in Mumbai who said that 5 years ago his market cap was 8,000 crores and his net debt was 800 crores. Today it's the other way around. So his debt is 8,000 crores in market cap. So from here we can only get better.
Okay.
And I would single out three things.
Are you sure?
Yes,
you can
absolutely.
only get better?
Yes.
All right.
I'd single out three things that Mr. Chidambaram has done. Number one, he talked about IDFs, infrastructure debt funds.
Right.
And I have a small interest, because out of the 4 that have been registered with SEBI, 1 is ours.
Okay.
And we'll do fundraising over the next 1 year. So infrastructure debt funds is good. The second, and not many people may have commented on this, is the look east policy and connecting our northeastern states with Myanmar. And ultimately, you should have a highway from Kolkata to Singapore. Just imagine the kind of difference that will make in infrastructure and real estate. And the third is the corridors.
Okay.
So 2007, we started the Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor, which is now going to take off. Now we are starting the Chennai-Bengaluru Corridor, again with the government of Japan, which is very good. And the third phase is, inshallah, the Bengaluru-Mumbai corridor.
And the budget does focus on it. So we'll look at the corridors and the linkages with real estate, the cities that it will spring up along the corridors itself. Sameer, your reaction?
So from an overall budget perspective, I think I'm quite happy, because it was not really a populist budget. So I think the reform will continue, and there'll be better policies that will come out in the near future, and we won't see too much funds getting allocated towards populist measures.
Right.
From a real estate point of view, I think it was quite uneventful. Not too much happening there, except that there has been some allocation, 2,000 odd crores for urban housing and 6,000 crores for rural, which will impact demand and be helpful towards that. Other than that, there's been not much. There was a lot of expectations for the real estate regulator to come along, which hasn't happened. So that's a big expectation.
But that may not be part of the budget itself, but it's worth discussing.
Yes.
Okay, Bombay now. I believe we've got our Bombay guest as well with us. Anuj, initial reaction to the budget, had we set up ourselves for failure and expectation, because as housing and infrastructure we expected too much?
I think the finance ministry did pretty well in managing the expectations before we went into the budget. So clearly, how Sameer said is that the expectations were pretty well managed, whether it was taxing the super rich or whether it was going to be a populist budget, all those things he's done pretty well in making sure that he's taxed the super rich, but he's not taxed it up to 40%, and it's 10% as a surcharge, which takes it up to 33%. And likewise, he's done populist schemes for the poor and for the youth and for the women, but at the same time made sure that there is business, that confidence and clarity in communication he's maintained. I, however, think on the real estate side, after 2 or 3 consecutive budgets, at least there was a mention of real estate in this budget. So that was a good start to have. Okay. Second is I think that the 1% TDS that has been put on any transaction on real estate above 50 lakhs is great because it brings in more transparency, and also I think it covers a lot of the speculation that goes on, particularly in the North India market, where speculators come in quickly and then buy under construction properties and then in a quarter or 2 quarters want to flip it. I think all that will now get in the radar of the tax authorities, which previously I'm not sure whether it did actually get onto the radar. I think on the home loans, for the first time home buyers, it's great news for tier 2, tier 3.
We're going to go clause by clause on what's happened for housing. This was just an overall reaction that I wanted. Okay, so Dharmesh, what do you think? Happy, unhappy? Because leading a home housing company, I don't think the reactions can be very, very positive at least.
It's an honest belief that going forward, I think there are 2 sectors that are going to propel growth. If you want to go back to the 8% and beyond 8%, I think there are only 2 sectors in the country that can propel you to that growth rate. I think this budget addressed the infrastructure sector, and it is my belief that the next budget will address the housing sector because these are the only 2 sectors that can really give you exponential growth. So over the last 10 years, probably 2 sectors that gave India the fillip to 8% were IT and telecom, and in the coming 10 years I think there are only 2 sectors which have the appetite, hunger and growth prospects to take India to the next level as far as sustained growth is concerned, and the only 2 sectors that I can see on a sustained basis giving growth to the country over the next 10-15 years is infrastructure and housing. So this budget addressed infrastructure. I'm sure next budget is going to address housing.
Okay, all right. So we live in eternal hope of that. Mr. Sridhar, your initial reactions as an ex-banker and of course NHP chairman, there must be a lot that you've seen in this budget, sir.
Overall reaction is one of let's say satisfaction, because I think it's a job that he had to do, a balancing act, and I think the most important thing was to highlight the fiscal consolidation. I think that was very important from avoiding a rating downgrade which would have had horrible consequences, and I think that message has gone very clear. And I think he has, through various measures, he has tried to reverse the negative sentiment that has been there in the last few months. Of course, the budget is just one of them. There have been other measures which he has announced in the last few months. So overall, well, there may not be any great growth momentum in next year, but I think the cycle is probably turning now, and I think as I would agree with Dharmesh, that maybe the next year would be much more optimistic. So from an overall perspective, I think the budget is a realistic one. The fiscal space was very limited, but I think it would give, for instance, the necessary momentum to RBI, for instance, to ease monetary policy, which may set off some other good things for us.
All right. I think the key here is, of course, the RBI monetary policy to kick off that investment cycle, but that's a larger debate. Gautam Nambisan, you tell us from the south, what has been the initial reaction to the union budget and, of course, in particular for housing and infrastructure?
Like you mentioned, what won't hurt you will just keep you happy. So I think that especially when it's going to be a populist budget, I think we have a budget which doesn't hurt the segment, but there are 2 key points. One is the growth, and second is the interest rates, which have to be looked into, and I think there is a story for growth, but with these high interest rates and interest rates not easing out, SOPs like increasing 2.5 lakhs, 1.5 lakh to 2.5 lakh for a person, but only if you take a 25 lakh loan, I think it's just an eyewash and it's not going to do much. But on the positive side, I think the lack of housing itself is going to grow in spite of all the budgets that we've had. This industry, and especially in the housing segment in real estate, has been growing in leaps and bounds over the years.
All right, so this is despite any government interference, so you might be happy that it's not interfering, but it still needs an impetus. So I'm just going to focus on a couple of now micro points, or the points which have emerged from the budget. Now let's start with something that Anuj started discussing and talking about: tax on realty deals. 1% TDS on sale of immovable property above rupees 50 lakhs. This, the budget document says, is to bring about more transparency in the transactions or system. So remember, last year the finance minister had actually said and set a limit of 30 lakhs and above TDS, but actually retracted it. Gitambar, what happened? There was a big lobby, developer lobby, which said this is actually going to dampen the industry, but how and why would this be acceptable this year?
See, it will still not be acceptable, Manisha, because any new tax is actually a burden on the buyer. Last year we appealed to the ministry to retract this tax, because there was no mechanism which was defined as to the collection, as far as the collection of this tax goes. This is one issue in the budget today which you are taking up. I think we'll take all the points as we go along. But you know, as an association, as a body, what I have noticed in this budget is that the core focus, and this is very well appreciated, it was to reduce the fiscal deficit. So it was more focused on collection of taxes and maybe increasing taxes from here, there, everywhere. We had appealed to our ministry, that is the housing ministry, to just give us one benefit, a basic benefit, which would actually, as Dharmesh said, it would trigger housing, and which would be revenue neutral for the government. We had asked for an infrastructure status for affordable housing.
Absolutely.
What that
for
would do,
the housing sector as a whole, I think it's a debatable point whether it should be given, but for affordable housing,
yeah.
There was a conversation I had with Ajay Makan, who said it must be done. So I don't know why it went missing.
And we are surprised too, because that would be absolutely revenue neutral. All that would do was that it would make cheap capital available to the developer, which is the pain of the industry today. You see, today all funds, private equities, FDIs, they are bringing in money which costs us something like between 18 to 24%. We are looking at capital for affordable housing. To do affordable housing, we are looking at the capital from, let's say, at a 10% or maybe even at a single digit. If that was done, and we were not asking for any tax incentives, we were not asking for any rebates aggressively. I mean, we do that as a custom.
No, but getting an industry status for affordable housing itself would, infrastructure status, pardon me, would actually entitle you to long-term funding, etc., and some concessions which come with it.
No, only funding at concessional rates.
Funding at concessions.
And no tax concessions at all. Now, what that would do was that that would actually trigger off housing in this particular segment where there's an actual shortage. You know, I was reading today in the paper that the construction industry employs now close to 50 million people, and construction and real estate and construction, they're sacrosanct. They go hand in hand. If this sector, construction and real estate, is given an impetus, is given a push, then it definitely helps to the growth of the GDP. Somehow or the other, this point has been lost on the finance ministry. All they had to do was give us this status of infrastructure for affordable housing again, and you would see some real positive changes.
Yes. Because your 98% shortage is in housing, affordable housing. Okay, Mr. Sridhar, you tell us, I mean, you've got a fresh fund for urban housing, you've got extra money for rural housing, yet do you think just giving infrastructure status to affordable housing would have worked much better and far better? Because yes, you're probably easing out demand and making it possible for people to buy affordable houses, but who's creating them? Nobody's coming forward to make them.
Actually, Manisha, I don't think these are actually mutually exclusive. You could have these funds because they sort of play a catalytic effect, and our experience with the rural housing fund in particular has been, I think, very good. And I do hope that the urban housing fund, which is a very modest corpus that the finance minister has put in, but that's obviously because of the budgetary constraints, he would, the future finance ministers would see their way to increasing that substantially. But I think the infrastructure status for affordable housing is a different ball game, and I think there are. My personal view is that, of course, I would, as a strong proponent of housing and particularly affordable housing, I would very much like infrastructure status to be considered for affordable housing, not for housing as a whole, but for affordable housing. But I think maybe with certain caveats. I think the infrastructure status from a banking perspective gives certain benefits to infrastructure projects, particularly in terms of restructuring, debt restructuring, and in the accounting treatment and things like that. So I think some nuancing and some tweaking may be done so that some of those apprehensions which the regulator may have can be addressed, and yet we get along with the main purpose of providing more credit.
You pointed out, sir, you pointed out to that very basic problem, which is the regulator needs some comfort. Okay, Shailesh, come in here. Giving infrastructure status might look like an easy task to do on paper, but if you look at the entire housing sector, right now the banking regulator is not even confident that banks should be extending loans to that sector per se.
I would just talk about construction. Gitambar mentioned construction, and 2 points here. One is construction. There are about 31,000 construction companies in India, and only 350 employ more than 500 people. So it is the most labor intensive industry, second largest employer after agriculture.
Right.
It makes a lot of sense to promote construction, and the best way of construction is promote housing and real estate. Coming back to your point about the tax deduction at source, from a financial markets perspective, there's this big hue and cry about CTT, commodities turnover tax, and STT, securities transaction tax. I wish the government of India would persuade the state governments to lower the registration charge on immovable property.
Right.
And this will actually benefit the state governments because the property tax for cities will go up, undervaluation will go down.
Right.
And therefore, I think this TDS idea is not such a bad idea. I agree with Dharmesh there.
Okay, TDS idea, not such a bad idea. Anush Puri, so I've also read one emailer which has just come to us saying, but what happens, you've made the limit at 50 lakhs, you're actually going to encourage black money even more. Most people who are at that threshold may not want to actually declare it in white and could take a large amount in cash. How do you deal with something like that?
So Manisha, they had the choice even before that. So that the tax limit of 50 lakhs and the threshold of 50 lakhs doesn't propagate whether you actually declare or you don't declare. I think the possibility of not declaring was much more higher than what it would be now with the TDS coming in at 1%. I completely agree with what Gitambar said is, I think there are two parts to what the budget said today pertaining to real estate. One was really what he gave, and one was what the expectation was and he did not give. I think what he gave, I am 100% in favor of what he did. So I'm absolutely fine with that 1%. I think, mind it, this is TDS, this is tax deducted at source. This is not an additional tax. This is a tax that you were anyway going to pay if you had made a profit. If you have not made a profit, you're going to be able to get the refund of that. All that he is trying to do is bring in transparency and take away speculation. The second is what he did not do, and I completely agree with Gitambar. We thought that infrastructure status to affordable would 100% come in. Not only that, Manisha, you remember a month ago, I think you had spoken with Mr. Ajay Markan. At that time he had said that we're going to do REITs on rental housing. That seemed that it was going to be most probable that the REIT structure would come in, at least on the rental housing, and there was no mention of that. We thought that the MAT in SEZs would come down. There was really no mention about that as well. So I think there were a few things that we had expected which did not happen, but the things that happened, I'm in full agreement that those were the right things that have happened.
Fair enough. So let's hold that thought and come back and discuss a little bit more about things that did happen. One of them is, of course, additional or abatement of tax on luxury housing or houses beyond a certain size. Come back and talk to our panel on how valid or not was that in Budget 2013-14. You're watching the Budget Realty Special. We're decoding the union budget for housing and infrastructure. Clearly, the finance minister seemed to have a bit of a mission today, and he had made this clear, given indication even earlier to presenting the budget, that is that the rich must be taxed a little bit more. So there is a 10% surcharge for those earning incomes of more than 1 crore, but this has also hit housing sector. Now, how has that happened? Abatement for homes over 1 crore is down from 70% to 75%. Abatement for homes over 2,000 square feet is also down from 70% to 75%. All right, Dharmesh Jain, in Mumbai, luxury housing is what he called it. 1 crore is clearly the luxury segment, right?
I don't think there is anything available below 1 crore rupees in Mumbai. So unfortunately, with the land prices the way they are, so I honestly believe that it has to be city specific. And generally speaking, if you'll see the plethora of taxes that the industry is facing, right from stamp duty to VAT to service tax, it's an addition which will deter people, and in a city like Mumbai, I really feel 1 crore rupees is probably not luxury. I would love the prices to come down, and contrary to what people believe, as an industry, we are really wanting the prices to rationalize, but that will only happen with volumes. You know, touching back on some of the earlier discussions that we were having, there's so much that needs to be done in housing. So the housing shortage in this country, ranging from various estimates, is from 25 million to 36 million units. So there are some, I think, 10 to 12 countries in the world which have a population greater than the housing shortage that we have. So I think there is clearly a case that we need to be innovative with housing as a sector, and whatever tax neutral measures we can take to boost this sector, I think, are most welcome. But coming back to your point, I think I know the spirit of the budget has been of taxing the rich, and prima facie, you know, if utilized well, I'm not against that, but it's a regressive step is what I would say.
Samir Jasuja, tell me, I mean, as it is, the industry keeps crying about the kind of taxes that a buyer has to pay, and that's the reason why homes are so expensive in the country. All right, this abatement isn't that big a deal. It's not in percentage terms that it will make. How much? I can see Kitambar's eyes popping out, but it's in percentage terms, it goes up from 3 to 3.6%.
Yeah, actually, no, that's not the issue here, Manisha.
Okay.
The issue is, and we've been shouting horse with the ministry for all these years. See, if you're taking a service tax on housing and qualifying it as a service,
right,
then we are not liable to stamp duty.
Okay.
Because it's immovable property.
Fair point.
Either take stamp duty or you take service tax. If GST comes in and we are liable to pay 16% as everybody else as GST,
right,
will we be still liable to pay 16% or 8% or 10% or 5% as stamp duty? So there's a huge confusion here, which the government has to sort out. It's not that abatement of 70% or 75%. The very implication of service tax is wrong on housing. It shouldn't be there in the first place.
All right, but so you're saying it shouldn't be there. So abatement is
legally it shouldn't be there, because either you take stamp duty or you take service tax. You can't qualify it as a service and then take stamp duty on immovable property. So this is the issue here. It's not that abatement of 70% or 75%.
Gautam Namisan, do you think that this is going to actually impact, because you know, anybody who's buying a house over 1 crore, that percentage increase, or in terms of abatement, the extra outgo in terms of service charge isn't that much?
Yeah, Bangalore is compared to Bombay. I mean, even in Bangalore, a crore of rupees is what most 3-bedroom apartments cost. So I think this impact is going to be across the board for everyone. And I just think that all of these taxes and the add-on SOPs just go on to increasing the cost to the consumer. And again, with the TDS, I think the implementation of the TDS is going to be more difficult than the TDS itself, like Anuj mentioned. I mean, TDS is a tax paid in advance, but you need a TAN number. Now, if a purchaser is coming to buy a 2-bedroom apartment and it's an individual, where would they have a TAN number from? So I think these problems are just going to add to the process, which is just going to make things more complicated and more difficult to deal with.
But I don't think he's going to retract this time, will he?
I'd just like to make some finer points here. First of all, when you're buying a property from a developer, it doesn't tantamount to sale at that point in time. There is an agreement to sell that is being signed.
Right.
So when we were talking about it curbing speculation, it's not going to really do that, because till a sale deed is not registered, which is post possession of the flat and the flat getting ready, is when you can actually TDS will get implemented. Yes,
TDS will
absolutely.
No, but they asked for it on day one. Whatever money you give, if the property is worth
They
more
haven't
than 50.
clarified that, right?
Yeah.
Sale of property.
Yeah.
Agreement to sell does not mean
I
sale
love
of
you for
property.
this. Yeah, I mean,
But that's a fact. You have to read the finer print right now to be able to answer that question as to when TDS will be applicable. So there's that one big point. So speculation, I don't think, is going to be controlled through this way.
All right. Anuj Puri, what's your reaction to this abatement of taxes on basically what the government considers as luxury housing, whether it specifies in terms of cost or area?
So I think, Manisha, three things. One, the 1 crore rupee and 2,000 square feet, it's really or. So in cities like Delhi and Bombay, certainly almost all the properties that come in will come into the purview of this luxury housing, as Dharmesh said is. So I think it's 0.6% if you were to do the calculation is what the impact will be to the final consumer. Certainly Dharmesh or anyone else is not going to absorb that. It will get passed on to the consumer. So certainly the properties will increase by 0.6% or 1%, clearly because the taxation increased, and this will be across the board, because every apartment in Delhi and Bombay will cross the threshold of 1 crore. That's the first thing. The second is...
So let's also get the views of Mr. Shrikant Parajpai. Shrikant, what do you think? I mean, give us your views on both these subjects that we're discussing, which is TDS and of course luxury homes abatement, tax abatement going up.
I'm completely with finance. I'm completely with Finance Minister on both the accounts. Actually, it's just 1% of TDS. If it helps to get more people under the net of taxation, I think it helps, and it's a welcome move. I don't know why it was retracted last year. About service tax, there was an issue of whether service tax is a right tax on the sale of flats, but having gone through the process, I think if it's come to stay, additional 0.6% is not going to make much of a dent. In fact, it's one of the tenets of taxation to extract tax, silently. It's a measure. I don't think a person who affords to pay 1 crore would mind paying additional 60,000 rupees.
That's well, even if they mind, they will pay it up. They have got the money to pay up.
So that's why I guess Shrikant doesn't mind it, because he doesn't have to pay it, the customer has to pay it, so he's okay about it, I guess.
All right, so now we're going to, so we're all in consensus on the housing funds, whether it's rural or urban, that's a good step, that needs to continue, and having an urban housing fund for the first time for affordable housing. Shailesh, what do you think?
I think it's a great idea. In the next 20 years, urbanization is the single biggest economic driver in India. And the more you can do about urban housing, the better. Because a lot of people are moving to urban areas and living in slums.
Right.
For lack of a better alternative. It's a good idea.
It's a good idea. Let me get the reaction from Bangalore. Gautam, do you see that actually encouraging now at least demand getting better for affordable housing? Because that's what the government is trying to do.
I think in terms of the urbanization fund, there are two things. One, it's a great idea, but two, it's not enough. I mean, 2,000 crores is what one small part of Bangalore would need for urbanization, like the BDA would need as part of its budget for urbanization. But I think to have it implemented, I think it's a great idea. And I think what's even more interesting is the rural housing fund. And I think these gestures are going to implement growth, especially in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities, and especially in the south. And I know for a fact that cities like Mysore, there are cities like Coimbatore, there are Trichy, I mean across various states which are as big as most other urban centers, leave the top 4 or top 5 in the country. and I think a fund, I think I need to see what the clarity of this fund is and what it's implemented for, and if it goes into the right hands, I think it should get into like water regeneration programs or something like that, which would really help out with the roads and the future of the city, you know. I think these ideas, this thought or this idea is great.
Okay, so here is so what I'm hearing is that it's the first time there's an urban housing fund, but it's too small in size. But okay, let's enlarge then the conversation and talk about the almost double allocation to JNNURM, which is extremely important for urban infrastructure and improving our living overall. Shailesh, that's a very good step. Implementation now is the core.
Let's talk numbers on JNNURM. I remember the original outlay was 1,21,300 crores. Only 50% of that would be given by the central government. And you know, coming back to Satish's point, that was not a very large number. Airtel had actually raised more money in a public issue just around the same time.
Okay.
But now you're doubling the outlay. So I'm just saying 2,000 crores does not sound like a large number, but it's bound to grow once it's been introduced. And JNNURM actually needs to be ramped up by a factor of 10 if we can.
All right. Okay. Srikanth, your basic summation of the urban fund, JNNURM, and what the government is doing for urbanization, is it just too piecemeal, too tiny, too small?
Yes, of course, I think it is too tiny, too small. At least in Maharashtra, we are now nearly 50% population lives in urban areas, and I think substantial more funds, substantial more money has to be allocated for JNNURM out there. But then what is? Of course, they have doubled it this time, which is I think step in right direction. But I think we need a lot more.
Okay, Mr. Sridhar, then tell us why JNNURM 1 did not work. I mean, it was Planning Commission itself said that there was a lot of gap between what was expected that JNNURM will do and it actually ended up doing for urban infrastructure and housing.
I think it came with a lot of caveats and on the state government, and I think state government is taking its own time to clear those preconditions, or you know. So I think over a period, this would become successful.
Mr. Sridhar, I mean, you've been very closely associated with funding. So what do you think, what was the big gap in JNNURM implementation first time around?
No, first of all, it's a I think a very well conceived program, because it was one of the few programs, probably the only program in the government, which was linked to reform. And while Srikanth mentioned that it put too many conditions, in a way I think that was good, because it nudged municipalities and state governments to undertake certain steps. And I think the whole market infrastructure was being developed by this fund. You know, digitization of land records, improvement of urban transport. I think the urban transport phase part of JNNURM has been a huge success. Similarly, in urban, in terms of roads, I think where it probably didn't succeed that well was perhaps in the things like solid waste treatment and so on and so forth, and in some of the the planning issues. So I think if the second JNNURM can integrate urban planning and give a lot of importance to urban planning, and we also provide the creation of new cities, which I think the industrial corridors, which in this budget also a very welcome statement. I think the industrial corridors would be the natural successor to the golden quadrilateral which we had about 7 or 8 years back. And I think that concept needs to be developed, needs to be implemented well, create new cities, better planned cities, have regional planning, and move in that direction. I think the urban housing fund can work closely with the JNNURM 2 and have been wiser by the experience of JNNURM 1. I think it's the future portends very well.
All right, so we're going to focus exactly on that when we come back. The budget does say that it's willing to focus more on the corridors. So there's Delhi, Mumbai, Shailesh mentioned, in the east as well, what's going to happen, the new corridors. So come back and discuss how that actually will lead to better urbanization and maybe decongestion of your top tier cities and probably give us all a breathing space. We're looking at the budget and what it's done for housing and infrastructure. Keep watching. The budget has actually provided for additional funds for the Delhi-Mumbai corridor. That's the Delhi-Mumbai industrial corridor to develop 7 cities, and also said that it will look at other industrial corridors. Anush Puri, for our tier 1 cities crumbling with the pressure of migration, this is a big welcome step. I mean, I know work has already started, but the fact that the government will focus on it and accelerate it, how positive is it?
I think it's positive on 2 accounts. One, if you look at, we've been always saying is that the real estate pricing has been very high, whether it is affordable housing or other housing. But if you were to dig deeper into it, you will discover that between 50 to 70%, the price is really the land price. And what you can really play with the cost of construction and interest cost and profit and marketing is really between 30 to 50%. If this program really comes up in its right earnest and the infrastructure is put up, large land parcels will open up, suddenly you will see the supply of land come up and hence the land values will go down. And that's where you're going to see the real impact of the prices going down. So that's the first thing, first good news that will come out if it comes in its right earnest. And the second is really it will start to decongest the cities. And it will decongest the cities because your economic activity will start to move in. You look at the IT. IT today would want to go into a tier 2, tier 3 city because there is talent, but the trouble is the infrastructure is not there. So once this infrastructure starts to come in, economic activity starts to happen, you're going to see the employment generation happen within those smaller cities and the pressure will be taken away from the urban centers.
Shailesh, for you this is a big welcome step, or do you think that it's just a continuation of what the government had already said?
So the Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor, actually the initial agreement was signed in 2007, and they were initially trying to do it through a public-private partnership, but luckily they converted that into a fully government-owned. What they have done is set up a $9 billion revolving fund, US, where the Indian government and the Japanese government have shared equally. So this gives a sufficient amount for initial development of 2 cities, for instance, Dhulera and Shendra Bidkin in Maharashtra. Now actually I was in Ahmedabad and I had a look at Dhulera. All the land for Dhulera is with them. Okay. But the question is, this is a very long term thing. In 2030 the projected population of Dhulera is not more than 20 lakh. But the initial infrastructure development will lead to huge externalities, positive.
All right, so very positive. Okay, so now we have to wrap out. Now, the one thing that I want to know is, this was the last budget, Geethambar, that the government presented, UPA, current UPA government presented. Next year, what do you want? Do you want change or do you want continuity?
No, we want change of what? Of ideas?
Government. Do you want change of government or do you want continuity?
We want good governance, no matter who it is. We want good governance.
That's
and
a very politically correct statement.
I have to be politically correct on this channel.
Okay.
No, we want good, see, our politicians are very weathered and seasoned people. They are intelligent people. We want good policy makers and we want good policy implementation. What they must realize is that, as Dharmesh very rightly said, these 2 sectors of infrastructure and real estate, I'll say housing, are the only 2 sectors which will actually see this country achieve a double-digit growth.
Right.
Otherwise, it's not happening. We contribute so much to employment. There are more than 300 industries which are, servicing the real estate sector because of the real estate sector.
So we know the multiplier effects.
We know the so we want a government which brings in policy, which implements good policy, and which takes good, effective decisions. Now, no, I don't know who it's going to be. It's a big question.
Okay, Dharmesh, you mentioned him, and he said that housing should hopefully find mention in the next budget. Who do you think will present the next budget, Dharmesh? Would you want continuity or would you want to change?
As an industry representative, it is not my job to speculate on who should be. As Geethambar said, I think it's there to see. I think it's a sector waiting to explore. There is genuine need. I think one of the essential tasks of any government is looking at where the need of the population is and providing for that. And if you will see, we often, this is a cliched but of the roti kapda makan, I think roti kapda ho gaya, makan abhi bhi baki hai, so that definitely needs attention. And again, as Gadambar mentioned, we are looking at non-fiscal measures. So my infrastructure status, is a non-fiscal measure which only will allow us easy access to affordable funding.
Right.
Similarly, one other thing, if you ask me, my wish list is that how do we fast track the approval process across the country. So there is this talk of any project about 1,000 crores, you can apply to the Prime Minister's office and they will fast track the. Why shouldn't a real estate project go under that? Similarly, every state government should have a scheme where any project above 100 crore rupees, I can go to the state government and I should get fast track approvals. I think the critical aspect of real estate is that till we don't crunch the approval process, that 2-year period is not benefiting anybody.
Okay, fair enough. Dharmesh, we'll have to wrap out here. Economic Survey actually talks about the approval process and says that the delays have to be cut down. Hopefully that the government will take cue from the Eco Survey. It is its blueprint after all, and make that big demand of the state industry a reality. Okay, I'm going to thank the panel now. We're going to run into the next program. Gautam Nambisan, thanks very much for joining us. Srikanth, Sridhar, of course Dharmesh, Anuj, pleasure to have you gentlemen from the Mumbai studio. Gitambar, Shailesh and Sumeer, thanks very much. So Budget and Realty, we just hope that our life and living, not just ours, but those on the fringes and those who can't afford big ticket houses also gets better as we have more policy changes in the budget or otherwise. Thanks very much for joining me today.